Alright, hey there DIYers. So I've been doing this cabinet project, and I'm kind of a hobbyist metalworker, hobbyist woodworker, a little bit of a fabricator, inventor, and this has been one of the larger projects that I've taken on, and it took me a while to figure out exactly how I needed to do this, because I didn't think there was too many super complete videos on YouTube about how to basically chemically strip and then refinish existing cabinets in your house. So I'm about 85 to 90% finished with this project, and this is about the last opportunity I'm going to have to be able to share what I've learned with YouTube, or even the internet for that matter. With that being said, let's just get right into it. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a piece of 150 grit sandpaper and just go over the existing coat of stain lightly. It doesn't have to be much. You just kind of want to get all that grime off of it. And then if you have any areas that are really soiled, I actually have, you could use a scraper. I've chosen to use chisels. Be careful with these, because if you gouge the wood, then you're just in for a whole boatload of problems. And one of my major takeaways from this project is that let the chemicals do the work. You really don't need to put your back into it too much when you're sanding. Just make sure you get the big stuff off, and as long as you give the stripper adequate time, which is 30 minutes, and you make sure you keep it from drying out on any piece of the wood, it will work. And there's no reason to really work too hard on sanding this finish off. So that being said, I'm going to take some shop towels. You will want an abundance of shop towels. I've probably used close to 300 of these so far. This is a pretty big kitchen though. There's 16 doors total, I believe, something like that. Yeah, 16 doors, and then these two drawers. Take these, and just kind of lightly, with a little bit of a damp cloth, wipe away any of that sawdust. And now comes the fun part. You know, all that grime that would have made a little bit of a barrier between the chemical stripper and the stain there. You just want to get all that out of the way. This is what we're going to be using today. There are comparable products sold at all kinds of hardware stores. This stuff seems to work pretty nice. I used like Stain Stripper X or something before that. Both of them, no complaints. Very good products. Make sure you shake it. You want to do this in a well-ventilated room if possible. Also, I recommend wearing the eye protection, because that stuff is a serious irritant. If it gets in your eyes for some reason, it's not going to be a good time. You also don't want to use any ordinary respirator device. You want to use one that's actually rated for organic vapors. Blue painter's tape is your friend. Make sure you have some on hand at all times. This stuff will indiscriminately remove cover or color from pretty much any surface. Alright, there we go. So now we're protected. And just start painting it on. You want to paint it on pretty liberally. Definitely, basically, you want the stain to boil up out of this wood here. then this drop cloth down here is actually one of the thinner ones. I just have it folded over a couple times. It has worked so far. I have not had any problems with this stuff eating through it, so keep that in mind. So, only took about 5 minutes to put this stuff on. Make sure that if there are any little spots that are starting to dry out, you actually want to take either a little bit more from the bucket you have the stain stripper in, or if there is, you know, excess anywhere, you can kind of thin it out and put it over the dry spots. But keep an eye on it, and you want to make sure that it doesn't dry out. Alright, now, so to correctly do this stripping process, you're going to want not just these gloves, or actually you don't need these gloves in general, but for me there's no reason to take them off right now. These refinishing gloves, these are the only ones that the lacquer thinner will not eat through. Even the heavy duty nitrile gloves, you'll only get a minute or two of use out of those before the lacquer thinner just completely eats through them. So you might as well pull them out, put them on. Take some plastic putty knives, because if you use metal or anything, you can dent the wood. This does kind of make it, it does make it vulnerable here. Just take them and just kind of remove all that old stuff as best as possible here. Now I keep a shop towel in the basin that I use to collect this old stuff, so I can just kind of wipe it off. Now, of course, this will also rip up the contact paper. I'm not putting new contact paper in right now, but don't expect to save this stuff. If you get it on there, it's not going to be saved. You want to go with the grain as much as possible. A small area like this, I just don't have anything really small enough to do it. Actually, I could use a stripping brush, I guess, as well. Make sure it's just nylon. You don't want to use a brass one, it'll scratch it all up. The difference maker is going to be the lacquer thinner. This stuff works nicely to get the big stuff off, but it's not a complete. It's not complete. Lacquer thinner, 0 grade steel wool, and whatever you can use to get separate paint can open with. This lacquer thinner is highly alcohol based, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, so it evaporates extremely quickly. That's why you want to make sure you have another container with a lid on it ready to go. Yeah. Take a piece of 0 steel wool. Drop it in the other container. Fill it up a little bit with lacquer thinner. Oh, that's way too much actually. Oh. It doesn't matter. I got this whole thing to do, so probably just won't have to fill that container again today. Water sprayer, shop towels. How this works. pull out that steel wool. Make sure you have plenty of Brillo pads on hand. You'll notice once these things will get clogged pretty quick. Once they get clogged, just move on to the next one. They're cheap enough. It's not worth trying to use the same one for the whole job. Now just kind of neutralize the stain stripper. Hopefully get any residual lacquer thinner out of there. Take some water, spray it on there, wipe it off with a clean cloth. And look at that, it's pretty much about as light as you'll get it. And then you'll see once we go back over it with a, say it's going to be 320 grit sandpaper, it will lighten it up. And then it's ready to apply stain. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Alright guys, so now we're going to prep the door for staining. This door has gone through the same chemical stripping process that I just showed you. First thing you're going to want to do is tape up the back of the door. That way, even though you should use the thinnest coat of stain possible, it still will find its way down the sides and onto the back of the door. Alright, so by the way, for that process I recommend using some blue painter's tape specifically designed for trim, baseboards, kind of delicate surfaces. When you have the first coat of stain on, and or actually, well, once you complete the front of the door, you're going to want to tape up the front of the door in order to do the back of the door. But just use the safe release or quick release, whatever, easy release, whatever the stuff is called, because that way you don't have to worry about possibly picking up some pieces of your freshly stained door on the painter's tape. I mean, you want to let it dry for about 24 hours before you tape it, but still, just to be extra safe, I definitely recommend using the stuff that's not quite, or it doesn't have quite, the hold that regular blue painter's tape would. So anyway, now we're going to use some 320 grit sandpaper and just go over pretty lightly. Doesn't have to be too hard here, hard sanding. Really the point of this is to open up the wood grain in order for the pre-stain conditioner and the stain to soak in effectively. Do your best to stay sanding with the wood grain. Pretty basic stuff. If you don't know that, you might want to reconsider whether or not you're capable of taking on this project, but I'll mention it. Hopefully it helps somebody. Air duster, gonna be your friend. Tack cloth. Alright, so after you've done that process to the first side, just flip it over and hit it real quick with the air duster, and just really briefly the tack cloth too. Alright, so now we're at one of my favorite parts of the job, actually applying the stain. Note, the mask is going to go back on for this operation. Try and do it in a well-ventilated room if possible. This is not a well-ventilated room, so hopefully I don't pass out on camera. First order of business is the pre-stain conditioner. Make sure you use this anytime you can. I mean, These cabinets are maple, and they are one of the hardest woods to get the stain to soak in correctly. If you use that pre-stain conditioner, you won't have a problem. Apply it with a towel. Here we go. Take note of the time. Put a timer on for about 15 minutes. Sit back, relax, let this stuff soak in. While it's doing that, I'll explain to you why making sure even the back of these cabinets is clean before you take them to your staining area. You want to make sure that no dust, literally no dust is ideal, is in the area that you're staining, because your brushes will pick that stuff up and then lay it down on the surface along with the polyurethane and stain mixture, and it'll look like little bubbles and it just will not come out clear. You can get this stuff to be, look like glass, ideally. Now that being said too, keep your brushes in good shape. Make sure you have high quality natural bristle brushes if you're using a stain with polyurethane in it. And before you actually put the polyurethane and stain in your paint can, give the brushes just a little bit of a work like this, or kind of loosen them up a little bit. And that way I just noticed that the stain seems to absorb more evenly into them. And I will show you how to properly clean the brushes so you can use these over and over again. I've used these same brushes for this entire job, and if I'm doing anything with polyurethane again, I'm sure I'll still be able to use these, so hopefully save some money with that. Oh yeah, and by the way, in order to get that clean area I was talking about, what I did is I put an old throwaway blanket down, and then I just put a clean drop cloth on top of it, put some painter's tape, on the floor to kind of hold it down in place, and it's worked so far. I've done all the doors on this one, even going as far as taking my shoes off every time I come into this area. So keep it clean, and it'll work out for you. All right, so it's been just about 15 minutes, and now I'm going to take a clean shop towel and just clean, dry one, just wipe it down, wipe the doors down, get any excess stain conditioner or wood conditioner that hasn't been absorbed by the doors off it. Yeah. Time for staining. So, you should also note that you need to apply the stain on the doors within about 30 to 45 minutes after you take off the excess stain conditioner. It will eventually evaporate out of the wood if you don't put it on in a timely manner. Make sure you stir this stuff up. And one thing you want to do, here we're going to show you, is that before you start, make sure that the brush has thoroughly absorbed the stain. I do that just by working it around in here slightly, and then you should be good. Now, even though you want the bristles to thoroughly absorb the stain all the way up, before you put it on the door, you do want to wipe off the excess. And trust me, there will be plenty in this brush to at least start first coat. Make sure you keep it light. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this corner is a little blotchy here. That just means the coat's a little too heavy. So you just make sure you take the brush, kind of dry it out by wiping it along the top or the edge of your paint can, and long strokes take up some of the excess. Then just to be clear, this is not putting any extra stain on the top of the door. This is just thinning it out to make sure this brush is as dry as possible while maintaining like a little bit of a wet edge, as they call it. So kind of actually want to use, you know, you want to get that wet edge from the surface of the door. Alright, now so we do need to seal in the edges. In order to do that, just use a small kind of like finishing or detailing brush. This is not regular like actual bristle. It's like a polyurethane. It's hard. You know, kind of feels like a piece of wood down there, but it's okay to touch up little areas like that. It has been working for me. This brush has seen better days. So there's another one. Alright, so now it's completed. Directions say you can let it dry for 6 hours, then go over with the 000 sandpaper, and then do another coat. I just let it dry for 24 hours. Alright, so if you're doing work yourself, you're probably going to want to save money, right? Here's how you can keep these brushes and reuse them over and over again, at least through this job, or the job that you're doing, and probably even your next one. You're going to need some mineral spirits. Take the paint can, bucket, whatever you're using, and you can empty out the stuff you didn't use back into the can. Then you take your brushes and you just put them right in the container you were using the paint with. Mineral spirits. And then you want to use a hefty amount of this stuff. At least I've found that it works best. I don't know what the directions say, but I basically fill it up so almost the bristles are submerged, or the bristles are almost totally submerged. And then take some water. I've been using warm water. Wait till it kind of heats up here. By the way, notice the mask is off for this. You don't really need the mask, at least I haven't found it to be uncomfortable to do without it. You will want to keep gloves on because this polyurethane stain coating, it will make your hands real sticky and it's hard to get out if you don't use gloves. So just keep the gloves on. And then once you fill up the paint bucket to a point where the bristles are now totally submerged. Just kind of go back and forth with your paintbrush, work all that extra stain out of it. I even take the bristles and kind of, really massage the polyurethane out of the brush. This is a shop sink here, so this stuff I'm just kind of putting right down the drain. But I would be careful if you have like a sump pump that's kind of, possibly sensitive to crud, and you might want to do this outside. I do recommend wearing safety glasses because this stuff is an irritant. If it gets in your eyes, it's not going to be fun. Give it a rinse. Dry it out a little bit. Take some shop towels. Dry it off. Try and be as gentle as possible on the bristles. As long as you're using a good brush, though, they will be pretty hardy for you. And you can see this brush is going to be pretty free of any polyurethane or excess stain, and it will live to see another day. Especially if you keep the sheath for the bristles. Kind of replace it. That way they dry in a correct way. Kind of don't get deformed or anything. And that's really all there is to it. Just repeating the same process for the bigger brush. Kind of working it in the bottom of the paint bucket. Back and forth. Massage that polyurethane and stain out of it. And then you will see a difference in how well those brushes hold up with their natural bristles as compared to anything with like a polyurethane. Even though this little finishing brush does look like it got pretty clean, I would hazard to guess that it's going to be pretty solid, pretty stiff next time I go and try and use it. But these are $3 a pack, like for a couple of them, and those are about $15–20 a piece. So I'm okay with having this mostly be a throwaway brush. Those are a different story. Try not to spray that stuff everywhere like I just did. It's not, the mineral spirits kind of thins this stuff out, and it's not a super harsh solvent, so you can see that that's still okay. I wouldn't leave it on there for a while, but it's not going to do anything to it right away. Alright, so door's been drying for 24 hours, and now we put on the second coat. In order to get ready to apply the second coat, take some 000 steel wool and just lightly go back and forth. Alright. Air duster once again. Tack cloth. And it's ready for round 2. Alright, welcome back to the staining facility. The same rules apply today as I did yesterday with the brushes. Take them, kind of work them out a little bit. That one's good. Same thing with this one. Very good. And as expected, this one's bristles are pretty tough, but it actually came back. It's not too bad. There we go. Take the stain, give it a thorough mix. I'm very low on stain, so let's see if we can get through this one door. I need to go out and grab some more of it. And with that, I am straight out of stain. So that's basically how you do it. I'm going to go out and grab a little thing of the poly stain that I've been using. In order to keep these from drying out in the meantime, I'm going to take a Ziploc bag and just kind of like rubber band it around a Ziploc bag, because you don't want the stain to dry in the brushes, then they'll go to waste. Alright, I'm back, and lucky you didn't have to fight the traffic to the hardware store, which was horrible. Alright, so those are the two doors that I showed you yesterday, getting the first coat. And now they got their second coat on. Alright, correction. Now they've got their second coat on, and basically that's all there is to it. These doors are just ready for hardware now. I'm redoing these other two doors. They already have their first coat, but they came out a little too dark. I didn't like them, so I went through the process. I restripped them, and now they're gonna get done again. And by the way, these came out too dark the first time because of my error. I used too much stain. It was not the stain itself. I'm still not. I refuse to go bashing this stuff because, in my opinion, it saves a ton of time. You get to apply 2 coats of stain and polyurethane all at once. You don't have to go staining or dyeing the wood, go through it twice, and then go over it with 2 or 3 coats of polyurethane again. It's just not necessary. This stuff is really awesome. Alright, so now we're going to be decorroding some of this hardware. Basically, you want to let it soak in apple cider vinegar for a couple days, and you can see how cruddy that stuff gets, so it does take it right off. Apple cider vinegar is pretty safe on like pretty much all surfaces. So what you want to do is just pull it out, kind of wipe it off. If you want, you can use a scrubber. You can see if I can find my scrubber real quick. So this, something like this. Make sure, again, you just want to use, something with the plastic bristles, because a metal one on metal could possibly scratch it. All right. So this one's good to go. You want to just make sure it's dried off as best as possible, and finish up the rest of the hinges or any other metal hardware that you need to get corrosion off of. Following the same process. Alright, so now we're going to go outside and hit that corroded or decorroded hardware with some Rust-Oleum rust inhibitor. Just use it according to the directions. It's really as easy as that, and just show you how it's done. Alright, so you just want to make sure that you're spraying it on the side that's going to be facing out away from the door. I'm not sure if it would hurt it if you spray it on the side facing the door, but I mean, there's no point, you know, it's not going to get corroded. Done. Simple as that. I just highly recommend you do this outside because the fumes on this are real harsh. Alright, so we're coming up on the final stages here. Basically, you just want to go ahead and mount the doors with the hardware that's been cleaned and decorroded. Alright, so now the doors are actually on. You take your template that you made, line it up correctly. So I even put an arrow to which side I was using, makes it easier. Mark it. Use this to start it. Alright, pull the door out and away from the cabinet frame. Make sure the drill is flat. Just to make sure this stuff doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it wouldn't, but just to make absolutely sure. Use some blue Loctite, put it right on the threads, and make sure you shake the tube before you use it. Again, always useful to have shop towels around. Just like that. Repeat. And just like that, all done. This kitchen is actually 100% finished now, or not the whole kitchen, but the cabinets are actually 100% finished now. So huge accomplishment for me, and I hope you guys learned something.